Now let's talk about what actually is the Snyder Cut. And this is for the new people coming to find out what the Snyder Cut originally was based on. The Snyder Cut was originally based on about and started, and I'll probably break that down a little bit more in chapters, but I wanted to give just a brief overview of the channel, what we'll be discussing and breaking down even further in the weeks to come. Well, what the original Snyder Cut was. And the original Snyder Cut, for the most part, was the film that was shot, not his original idea, but the original film that he shot. That unfortunately, when he had a family, Zack Snyder had the director had a family tragedy. He could no longer continue the film, so he had to leave. And from what was understood at the time, he left notes on where to take the film further in terms of the reshoots and things that he needed so they could fix the film in his absence. And what's understood is there were certain people behind the scenes that took it upon themselves to use this opportunity to basically reshape the DCEU moving forward because they did not like his vision and they felt like they could do better. If you ask me, I think there were people feeling like it was wide open for Kevin Feige, because at the time the big argument was who is the Kevin Feige. That was kind of Zack Snyder, but he was also the director, and a lot of YouTube pundits kept arguing, well, maybe they needed a Feige as opposed to a director to oversee the whole universe. And there was arguments for it and talking points onto it, but unfortunately that wasn't the case, or fortunately, however you might decide to see it. But the fact of the matter is that he shot everything that he really wanted in principal photography. All that they really needed to do was the reshoots, and the visuals weren't 100% done. He, for the most part, edited the whole film together, and he had the film together, so he had the whole film beat by beat by beat. So he knew exactly what the film was going to be, and it was supposed to be 3 hours or three and a half. All that was needed to be done was this a lot of most of the visual effects up to that point. We'll get into the new information probably in our next episode, but for right now we're just going to focus on what the Snyder Cut originally was that it was everything that he had shot up to the whole entire film that he had put together, that you would submit to the execs so they could see what film that you work with, they could give their notations, etc., etc. Now, the discrepancies on what people behind the scenes felt about the film. Some people said that they really liked it more, but it was too long. Some people felt like they didn't like it. So it's going to be hard to grasp what position that is, especially if you're a fan or a layman and you don't know enough about it. That's where it'll get muddied in the water. But as a person that was following the Snyder Cut from the very beginning was people just wanted to see that whatever was shot, whatever Zack Snyder wanted, they if he had the story all together, people just wanted to see what they were going to miss out. Even at that time, people did not even expect to even get a chance to see it or expect it to be 100% done. No one even had an expectation. No one even thought of it. It was widespread understood in the very beginning it wasn't finished. They just wanted the cut that everyone was able to see, that the execs saw, that left it split down the middle. Some people liked it, some people didn't. Some people said it was a monetary reason. And for the laymen that are here, monetary meaning that if it's more of the same and we didn't make gross the same amount that we wanted to do on BVS, then you'll be disappointed. It don't matter if you personally like the story or not. It's all about what I could get the most out of it. That and monetary reason, most specifically because if you're going to rent out screens and you have a 3 hour film, we can't play a 3 hour film. And not too many people have that type of attention attention span. Snyder is a long format guy. You could kind of tell he's a long-winded kind of guy. And for what they wanted him to put in that film, it was gonna take a lot of storytelling. But they didn't want it. 2 hour films, if you have 3 hour plus films in on a screen, that's less showings. If you're trying to maximize your dollars, the closer to 2 hours I get it, the more it could play on screens. And then the turnover, you get more on the flip. So you can get more on the flip on the first weekend. So even if they ain't too care for it, we got it on the first weekend. So now when word of mouth goes, then we already got as much as we could of the first week. And that's where you're going to get most of your money. So they thought that was going to be the best opportunity to increase their money. Plus, there was also some personal stuff going on, which we'll get into later, something about bonuses and things like that. But that's when you want to get into the nitty gritty, and we'll dig into those environments later. But I just want to make sure for the layman's that don't know too much about the film industry, that was one of the main reasons why they also wanted to trim the film down. And then there's other things that went behind it as well, but we'll get into that later. But the Snyder Cut in and of itself, and this is how it always started, and this is why I personally always took a lot of offense for a lot of people that have felt that they needed to take shots at the Snyder Cut, and by creating an argument that never was an argument amongst the Snyder Cut fans to begin with. They didn't care whether if it was finished or not. They just wanted to know if they could see it. And how far along was it, if it's watchable. And is there a way you could just, they didn't care if you had a blue screen in the back and you could see Diana just talking regular. They just wanted to see what they could have gotten. And unfortunately, anti-Snyder Cut fans are like, well, fuck that. And it's like, well, in the beginning, it was we already know that they were gonna change course. Zack Snyder didn't even go to the premiere. He doesn't consider Justice League his film anyway. So a lot of people have moved on. The Snyder Cut fandom now came when people started comparing a lot of the trailers and realizing there's a lot of, and these guys did their due diligence. They were really going through it and peeling out a lot of things that was in trailers that never made the film, and it also sparked more speculation. And over time, as you can see, people from behind the scenes were coming about talking about it. If organically people from behind the scenes started latching onto a movement, then that means there's people behind the scenes that felt like there was something completely wrong with how that was handled, and they were just as impassioned, if for no other reason. Forget the business. Forget the business. Business is always on the table. Forget the business. But on a very artistic level, they thought that that film should have been seen, or even maybe if it was personal, it was they didn't too care for how it was handled. Especially all things considering, it was circulating around Zack Snyder's very personal tragedy. So the Snyder Cut for a lot of people in the very beginning wasn't about a 100% finished movie. That's an argument. Don't buy into that bullshit. That's a fringe argument. That wasn't even the point. You know what I mean? That came after the fact. How finished was it? That wasn't an argument until like maybe a year later. I was following the Zack Snyder cut. I was up in the cut watching this. This is before I had a YouTube channel. I was just a fan. And so before it was even a Snyder Cut fan base, I was there from the very beginning when people were just speculating on it and talking about it. And then as it evolved, then it became a hashtag release the Snyder Cut. When more information came out about it was way more completed than people realized, then people was like, yo, can we see it? They just wanted to see that. They wasn't even asking for anyone to put money into it. No one asked for that. No one has the power to ask for that. So I didn't understand the personal attitudes towards it. You know, we could get into whether Superman was who he was when I read him in my comic. We can get on all that dumb shit later. Plenty of time. We got a year to do that. But it was never about that. That's what the Snyder Cut never was about. It was about seeing the vision, and if the story was put together and already cut together, everything was done, all it needed was the visuals and shit like that, people were willing to just watch that. That's how dedicated people were to the story. They loved the story that they were getting. Some people were just fans of Snyder, and I'll be honest with you, I think a lot of people started becoming fans of Snyder due to the anti-Snyder fandom. And you ask me, it was weird how much people was so anti the Snyder Cut. You'd almost thought that Zack Snyder came into their living room and punched them in the nose at one point in their life. I mean, like, literally. Like, I'm not even trying to be facetious or funny or corny, all that shit. Like, you could go out there and see people or really have real strong attitudes towards this. And let's be clear, man. We as YouTubers, we're all trying to jump on some sort of bandwagon that could drive views. Everybody wants views. Me, I'd be lying if I said I didn't care about views. But at the same time, I'm not trying to make content for views. I want to make the content I want to make, and hopefully I could do it in a viewable manner that people will like. So even if you don't like my opinions, you'll like how I present it. You'll like, the aesthetic of my page. Hopefully you'll like the colors that I choose. Hopefully it sets off a good enough mood that is inviting, that makes people want to come to the channel. At least that's how I look at it. I don't purport myself to create a space to just force people to want to like what I like. What I would prefer you guys to do is say, he is a good communicator, and I'm trying my best to be a better communicator. And he communicates his positions, his discernments, and his arguments in a very entertaining and consumable fashion, that even when I don't agree, I at least can clearly cite what I don't agree about his position. But at least I can respect his position because he's clear. And most important, for me, I want to be consistent. Consistent to who I am and how I present my thoughts and my point of views. Because that's all we can do as YouTubers, to be quite honest. We as YouTubers could only just present our arguments in such a manner and hope and pray that people understand our position. And if they have any discrepancies, we've laid it out in such a manner that they would know how to isolate and get what I'm saying in full content, so they can at least appropriately address it the way it was presented, as opposed to creating, like I said from earlier, oh, well, Jonathan Kent said to let people die. He didn't say that. Well, he said, when his son asked, when Clark asked, well, should I have let them die? And he said, I don't know. I mean, he said, no, not I don't know. People always say, well, he said maybe. But you always conveniently left out the part where he said, I don't know. That changed the dynamic of the conversation. I could say maybe, but if I say maybe, I don't know. Me saying maybe and maybe, I don't know. Two different statements. It may be about the same, but about, if I owed you $100 and I gave you about $100, you still gonna say, where the fuck is my 100? I could say I gave you about, it's I gave you 97. I ain't asked for 97. I want my 100. You short $3. So if you're not addressing it right unless you address the totality of the statement within its proper context. Otherwise, you're just arguing. You're being disingenuous by pulling out what you wanted to and arguing against that so you could always win. And if anyone could do that, I could pull out part of your statement and argue against that all day long. But if you don't pull the whole statement out, you just wasted 30 minutes arguing to yourself. Because the other two sentences might have answered everything else that you might have said in your 20-minute rant. I mean, it's just fair. Excuse me. Excuse me, pardon me. And that's what I want to be. I want to be consistent on how I present my argument, my position on what things is. And to be quite honest, the Snyder Cut was always about just seeing the vision that he shot from the very beginning. This whole argument about how much it costs and all of that, that was an after effect. That wasn't even an issue to people. No one cared. So the people that created the how much it should cost and was it finished, they would just move the goalpost over to an argument that they could win. And unfortunately, the Snyder Cut fans fell for that. They should have said, well, it's not done. We didn't care. We want to see that. But it's not finished, right? Okay, but we want to see that. That's what we were saying. That's what Snyder Cut fans should have said to anti-Snyder Cut fans. They should have never found themselves arguing on how much it was done and how much it was complete, because it was all speculation from credible sources. And we'll get into that down the line. But I just wanted this for the layman's that just curious about the Snyder Cut. That's what it is. Now we'll get into the argument between the two.